Hey, it worked. All right. Sorry to start just a little bit late, everyone. I was having technical difficulties, but now they're better, and that's great. Welcome to another live stream here on this channel in 13 seasons. We divide the year into 13 parts, and each of the parts are about 28 days long. And during each of these seasons, we celebrate and practice a particular virtue. And right now, and we just moved out of the virtue of acting with balance, and we're moving on to the virtue of staying motivated. I want to begin today by, because the idea is this is supposed to be like a celebration, right? It's celebrating virtue. Virtue is fun. The point, a long time ago, when Jesus, who's amazing, when he was walking the earth and he was living among people who were very rule-oriented people, and it was a Saturday, and that was their Sabbath, and they had really strong feelings and opinions about what you should and shouldn't do on the Sabbath. And he and the people that followed him were walking through a field and pulling some of the food out of the field to eat, and they felt like that wasn't something you should be doing on the Sabbath, and they chastised him for it. And his simple response was that man was not made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath was made for man. I really like the wisdom of that. I appreciate Jesus so much. And the same is true of any good thing. The same is true of virtue. Virtue is not some sort of rules it's not some sort of rules or like restrictions put on people so that we can serve them. Virtue is a gift we have to help us know how to live in a way that will help us love ourselves and love other people and be able to create lives and families and societies where we thrive, where we get along, and where we heal, and where we enjoy ourselves, frankly. It's learning how to live the good life. And so, and part of living the good life is celebrating and having fun and having a good time. And so it's really important to me, and I want for these live streams to be more and more and more of a celebration. And so to start, in order to celebrate, I want to celebrate the success that any of us have experienced during the last virtue season. And I want to celebrate the fact that Charlotte has put in the chat so many pictures of cats in boxes. That makes me laugh a lot. That is wonderful. And I want to celebrate how we have grown. She puts more. I want to celebrate how we have grown in virtue. So I'm going to start. I'm going to name some ways I've grown in virtue over the last 28 days, and I invite you all to give me a huzzah to celebrate with me, and use this time to think for a second and think about ways you've grown in virtue, or ways you've grown as a human being. When I say, what is virtue? Let's take a step back. Okay, when I say virtue, what I'm talking about is excellence. The Greek word for virtue is arete, which means excellence in all things. I think that virtue is articulated to me best by the great sages of the past, known as Bill and Ted, who had an excellent adventure. And they spent time with Socrates when they time traveled. And when they were spending time with Socrates, they learned a little bit about his philosophy. And Socrates is actually One of the oldest sources we have of a Greek philosopher talking about virtue, using the word arete in Greek. They spent some time with Socrates, and they began saying to people, be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. That's what I'm talking about. Be excellent to each other, including our own selves, our own bodies and spirits, and be excellent to ourselves, and live life in a way that communicates partying on. Living life as a party is good. The only time when parties become problematic is when they cross certain bounds that cause them to start becoming harmful to anyone. But if you're being excellent to each other, the party's never harmful. Everyone's enjoying it. My father-in-law, my wife tells me that father-in-law was prone to say that it's only funny if everyone's laughing, right? Well, the party's fun if everyone's enjoying it, and everyone's enjoying it when we're excellent to each other. So how have I grown in excellence? How have I grown my ability to be excellent to myself and others? How have I grown in virtue over the last 28 days? Well, we've been focusing on acting with balance, on making sure that our actions don't go to extremes that are harmful, right? Like I talked about the Pharisees at the beginning of this, the ways that they were trying to act went to an extreme of being just too strict, right? They had these extremes. They were going beyond an extreme. Another extreme could be, having no rules at all, right? So we want to find that balance, right, in all of our actions. And some ways that I've grown and act with balance. First of all, I have learned that for me, a powerful way to act with balance is to hug more. That as I choose to use my agency to do the action of hugging people more often, I feel more balanced. And so that's something I've learned and I'm working on. I feel awkward about it because I'm not a person who's hugged people a lot. And so I feel like weird about it. Like, will I cross the line for someone else if I hug them? But I'm just choosing to today I was with someone and he went to shake my hand and I said, is it okay if I hug you? And he was like, sure. And so I hugged him, right? Trying to ask people for consent so I don't cross a boundary for them. And I'm just trying to hug lots of people all over the place. So if you don't mind celebrating with me that I'm learning to hug, go for it. Just give me a good huzzah. Huzzah! Another way, and all of you feel free in the chat to put how you've grown and we will celebrate it. Another way that I've grown this season is that thank you for the huzzah, Barbara. Another way that I've grown this season, I'm trying to think how to articulate this. I have learned I am learning, I'm in progress of learning how, well, okay, I'll show you this book. I found this book like this. It's called The Definitive Book of Human Design, A Science of Differentiation. And as I'm reading this book and thinking about what it has to say, this book is a lot about how to identify where your unique gifts and talents are, and to lean into the ways that your body and spirit are uniquely designed to interact with the world, and not try to just follow conditioning of how people have told you're supposed to be. And as I've leaned into that and had some other experiences, I'm learning to act with balance by not just living up to all these expectations I've accumulated over the years, and instead figuring out what's really true to me and just do that and do what fills me with joy and satisfaction and what feels really true to what I need to be doing for my journey in my life, and not doing things because of expectations that I've accumulated over the years that aren't necessary. And that has been very freeing for me, and I feel much more balanced. So if you can give me a huzzah, huzzah! And I'll wait a sec for anyone that wants to put in the chat. Oh, I remember one more that someone sent me. Melissa Broadhead sent me a text. This was actually from not this last season, season before, but I forgot to say it last season. And Nathan really wanted me to say it in this because I forgot to last time. And so I really want to say this because it's cool. But it's a really good example of virtue. Nathan Broadhead's little brother was feeling really scared at night a lot. And so Nathan was wanted to help his brother. And so he's been coming to live streams and observing some of the meditation practices that we do. And he told me that he really likes meditation. That it's really good for him. And so he actually got a piece of paper and wrote out a meditation for his brother to do to help his brother think about Jesus and not feel afraid. And he gave his brother this meditation as a gift. And Melissa took a picture of it and sent me the meditation. I was reading through it, and it was really good. I was very, very, very impressed. So that was a great example of being, of caring about someone and going out of your way to help someone using, and trying out something and using tools available to you and following a good example you're seeing. So good job, Nathan. Huzzah! All right, I'm just going to wait a couple minutes to see if anyone else wants to put anything in the chat for us to celebrate. And while we're waiting, this can actually just we'll be pretty quiet for a little bit because that's what waiting looks like, but that's not a bad thing. A moment to just be is good. Anyone else wants us to celebrate any way they've grown the last 28 days, please feel free to put it in the comments now. Okay, two things. So Charlotte says, what did you say? I missed it. So Charlotte, and I appreciate how much Charlotte and Will, how much you guys write in the chats, and you guys have been celebrating using emojis since we can't hear you hear you do your huzzah. So that's pretty rad. So what I was saying, Charlotte, is that this is a chance right now for you to add to the chat anything that you want us to celebrate, how you feel you've grown in the last 28 days. Barbara says, I'm learning to just breathe when I feel stressed. That is really powerful. Let's give it a huzzah. Huzzah! I'm so happy. That's wonderful. Charlotte says, I've gotten better at art. And I'm really glad you brought that up, Charlotte, because particularly with this season of acting with balance, right? I think these things we're saying are examples of acting with balance in ways that we don't realize we're doing them. And when we're stressed, we stress, being stressed for just a moment of stress is good, right? So if there's a life-threatening scenario that pops up, like a bear jumps out or something, having our body reacts by giving us all these hormones that help us to run away, right? And then after we run away and we get away from that bear, our body becomes balanced again. And that's great. But perpetual stress isn't good. In today's world, we um, in today's world, the stresses we have aren't just like bears popping up at us. The stresses we have aren't short-term things; they're long-term things. So over most of the stresses we have are stresses dealing with like usually some kind of actually social problem that it's usually something we feel like we're supposed expectation of like we're supposed to be doing for other people or something. And those social problems, and it's not they don't just go away; they go on for a long time. And so our bodies become imbalanced when we feel stress for more than just a short moment. Like really imbalanced. Like stress over time leads to our bodies turning off certain systems and turning on other systems overmuch, right? So like digestion and the immune system turn off, and so if we're stressed for time, we won't digest well, we won't sleep well, we get sick easier. But then things like blood pressure, like the circulatory system, turn up, and that's not good. So and so learning to just breathe, right, is really powerful. The Heart Math Institute has found that if you breathe like you feel a certain way, your heart will beat like you feel that way. And when your heart beats like you feel that way, your emotions change to feel that way. So if you breathe like an angry person, your heart beats like an angry person, and you start being an angry person. If you breathe like a calm person, your heart beats like a calm person, and you become a calm person. That's a really powerful way to become balanced. I really like that Shara's talking about art. When we talk about act with balance, the arts, and Kessie's talking about dance too. Art and dance are a really powerful way to practice the principles of acting with balance. In order for a dancer, for example, to do dance correct, to do a good looking dance, they have to learn the discipline of like with each move of getting it just the precise amount. You don't go too far, you don't go too little. You stay on beat. You do these things. That discipline you do, you get your muscles, built up to a certain point where you have the ability, the power behind the action. Dance is a really powerful way to discipline yourself and practice acting with balance, as is any kind of creative act. So like with art, you have to be disciplined enough to draw each thing just the way you want it. Not, like each line needs to go the right amount, not too much, not too little. Either the right amount of pressure, not too much, not too little. The principles of design in the image need to have balance to them, right? So like if you on one side of the image, if you have something here and you don't have something here, it'll pull the eye too much that way, for example. And like the color is good. It's good to use intentionality with how you balance different colors against each other and things like that. So I really feel like practicing the discipline of art or dance is a way to practice something that then bleeds out into other parts of our lives. So huzzah to Charlotte, huzzah, huzzah to Kessie, huzzah. And I love to see how you guys are celebrating each other in the comments beyond you saying huzzah. Jamie says, this past month, I took time off from all my extra meetings and lessons and took time to reevaluate how I use time and what is important to me. Some things I feel to add back in as they were before, and others I'll add on with different boundaries. That is really, really, really good. This whole last season was about these balancing between extremes, and sometimes the way you figure that out is you just take a break. Right? If it's feeling like too much, just take a break, and then come back, and then after being away for a while, come back in with new perspective, and that can help you find the right balance. So, huzzah, Jamie! Huzzah! Will says, I was trying to say that I got better at not being criticizing when Charlotte talks to me about ideas for stuff. That's really important. In fact, I think the reason to act with balance, that the whole point of it is to make sure that we take care of ourselves well and to make sure that our actions don't go to any kind of extremes that harm others, right? And so we're really learning how to interact with each other in a way where we can experience a good society with where people are pure in heart and there's no poor among us. Where people have all things in common. Like that's in order to have that kind of society between us, we gotta learn in lots of little ways how to make our interactions work. So we don't otherwise our relationships just tear things apart. And so it's real that just learning how to have be balanced in the way you react. With Charlotte, when you're creating things together, when you're sharing feedback on creative and personal things, it's like really important, Will. You are learning really important lessons when you do that. So huzzah! Let's see, Brendan, who goes by the Zion lifestyle on here, says, I am super struggling with this right now. I don't know what I was saying at the time, Brendan, so I'm sorry. I don't know what I was saying when you said that. But I feel for that struggle. And I pray and hope for your success. And if at any point during this, if you want to share anything more about that, we can talk more about it and get into that. Melissa says, I've recently been seeing a new voice teacher and I'm learning so much more than I ever have. I wanted to learn contemporary musical theater style singing for years. I was not getting where I wanted with the teachers I was finding. The teacher I have now is a master and I'm making some great progress. I love that reminder of the importance of mentors. We do not exist as islands. It is not strength to do things alone. We exist together. The point, I mean, one of the last things Jesus expressed that he wanted for people was for us to become one, not for us to be separate. And we often talk about what he does for us as at-one-ment. And so I think it's really important for us to learn to undo the false beliefs that by doing things alone, we're being stronger. And instead learn what I believe is the true belief that letting people help us become strong and become empowered, not having other people necessarily do things for us, although there's a place for that. Sometimes we just have so much going on, we just need someone to do some things for us, and that's great. And other times it's good to have a mentor to teach us what we need to know to become really good at something. And then we can turn around and do that same thing for others. And having the humility to accept that and look, and also having the wisdom to find the right person to accept as a mentor is really important. So good job, Melissa. I'm glad that you're making the growth you want to make in learning to discipline your talent and make your talent into what you want it to be, which is a similar kind of practice of active balance as dance. So huzzah! Okay, that was really fun. Thank you all for coming forth with your things for us to celebrate. If you think of other ones and you want to throw them in here while we keep going, like we can stop what we're doing and come back and celebrate some more things. That'd be great. But I am going to transition now to talking about staying motivated, which is our focus for the next 28 days. So when it comes to staying motivated, there's 7 principles that you can find on 13seasons.org. If you go on the site there and you click on the staying motivated part, you will find 7 principles there that are really, really powerful that'll help you stay motivated. During COVID, when I was a school teacher during COVID, a lot of my students I worked with really struggled to stay motivated. And I would there were a certain group of students that I was specifically assigned to look after, like like they were like my kind of group that I was looking after during that time. And I would try to call all of them frequently and talk with them about how they're doing and work and work through things with them. And so many of them were struggling with staying motivated. Just being at home instead of at school, trying to do their homework while doing classes over Zoom. It was very, very, very difficult for them. And the same 7 principles on 13seasons.org, I would talk with them about. I'd go over those 7 principles with them, and I'd say, which of these would help you? And they would, you'd usually identify, a few of them. And so I became very acquainted with these principles during that time and saw many times how helpful they could be to people. Let me see what Brandon wrote here. Thank you, Brandon, for your thoughts about staying balanced. And I like how you say that today motivation has been a huge thing for me that I noticed I wanted to work on. Well, there you go. Brandon's feeling moved by the spirit of the season. So when it comes to staying motivated, I don't know if we'll talk through all 7 of them today, but I think we'll hit on a few of them. And the one I want to hit on first is staying motivated by purpose. So if you have a strong sense of purpose, it's much easier to see something through and stay motivated through the entire process. If you're doing things in your life just to check off boxes or just because you're supposed to, or to keep up with the rat race or something like that, it's a lot harder to stay motivated through the whole process and see it through to the end. With students during COVID, I would encourage them to think about what do you at this point in your life, what do you think of the purpose of your life is? What do you want to accomplish with your life? And what do you think your purposes are? And have them think about that, and then encourage them to think about how the homework assignments they had to do by how accomplishing those would help them accomplish the purpose they had. And then it puts homework assignments in a whole different light. I think it's really important to remember that true purpose is always about relationships. In my experience, this is a principle that Jamie's brother, Jamie shares principle with me. Her brother Dave shared it with her, and then she shared it with me. That apparently he had some people come to a training at his work, and they introduced this idea that you need to do your work with purpose, but your purpose is always relationships. Your purpose is how do you want your work to matter to people you have relationships with. I think we can expand it beyond just people, right? How our relationships can be with people, like our family. Our relationships can be with groups of people, like I have a relationship with society, right? Relationship can be with plants, with animals, with the earth, with God. Like our relationships aren't always just people, but in the context he talked about, it was with people. And so there was this idea that he was encouraged to think, these trainers encourage everyone in his office to think, okay, what's the purpose of your work you do, in terms of how does the work you do affect people and how do you want it to affect people? And then he told my wife that he made a list of the people that are important to him, that his work affects, and he kept that by his computer every day while he was working, so that he would remember his purpose, which is the heart of which is relationships. And so it can be valuable to think things like, okay, 10, 20, 30 years from now, how do I want to have impacted the people and groups of people and this planet? How do I want to have all the life forms on it? How do I want to have impacted others for good? And then consider the things I do each day as part of that bigger purpose. And then it's a much easier to stay motivated. And yes, Brendan, the way our motivation is tied to how we affect others. And this is where all the different virtues tie together, right? Several months ago in an earlier virtue season, we talked about accepting agency. And part of accepting agency is accepting that my choices affect others. And so Just like people can't exist in islands, like people are connected, and you just can't help that, right? Like if you're upset that your actions affect other people and other people's actions affect you, well then I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do about that. It's just the way the world is. It's just the way existence is. You can't escape it. Other people's actions will affect you, and your actions will affect other people. You cannot exist on this planet independent of that. We are interdependent. It's just the way it is. And similarly, all these virtues that we celebrate each of the 13 seasons, they all intertie with each other. And so as we go about this effort to think about purpose and how our motivation is informed by purpose, that's connected to the idea that our actions affect other people. And a few months from now, we'll talk about the virtue of love. And if purpose is about relationships, then it's about love. And so that way the love virtue gets tied into this as well. Something you might think about doing is take some time to regroup and reflect by thinking and actually writing out, journal about how you want your actions. What do you want your purpose to be? It's something to be prayerful and meditative about. And be able to articulate it. What is your unique purpose? And articulate that in terms of the relationships that are tied into that purpose. If you can figure that out, then the next step can be to then write down, then from there write down like the kinds of things you do with your life right now, and figure out which of those things connect to your purpose. And here's the next thing about that. As you do that, you might discover that there's some things you spend your time on that aren't connected to your purpose. And it might be time to let go of those things, to sacrifice them for something better, and replace that time with things that fit into your purpose more. Or you might just find the things you're already doing are great and just keep with them. The next principle of motivation I think is really important is vulnerability. Vulnerability is huge. Vulnerability is doing something even though it puts you in a position where you could get hurt. And you have to have vulnerability to be motivated. Because if you don't have vulnerability, you will stop probably before you even get started, because you'll be like, this might not go well, I'm not going to try. Moving forward with something requires being okay with the fact that it might fail and just accepting that. And then I see that Brendan just posted, and I'll say some of that in just a second. And the vulnerability I'm talking about is actually true courage. One thing that's interesting, if you look over on 13seasons.org, if you look over all the different virtues they're listed there, there's in 13 groups, and each of the 13 groups has a certain number of virtues under them. There's 96 virtues in total, and courage isn't anywhere on there. And I think most people think of courage as a virtue. And so when you look at that, some people might go, wait, why don't you have courage there? Well, courage is there, but we just call it vulnerability. Because true courage isn't the absence of fear. True courage is doing something even though you're afraid. There's this fake courage that's been invented by ego that says that you're supposed to like do crazy things and not be afraid. And that doesn't exist. It's not real. And I think a lot of people think it's real, and they look around them and they see people that look like they're having courage. They're saying, how come they're not afraid, but I am? This sucks. I wish I had courage like them. But the truth is they probably are afraid. They're just moving forward even though they're afraid, because that's what courage is. It's vulnerability. Brendan says, how do you stay motivated when your success is in the hands of another and they don't want you to succeed? That's heavy. First of all, I just invite everyone here to take a moment in your heart to I'm assuming that Brendan or someone he knows is going through this right now, and that's a heavy, hard situation to be in. So I just encourage everyone to say a little prayer or whatever, or give a good feeling, whatever you do in that way, towards Brendan and for whoever it is that's feeling this, and just give your spirit and your energy to his support, your love, their support. That's a hard situation to be in. Okay, I think part of what we go back to here is, if you go to 13seasons.org and you look at the 13 virtues there's a circle around the outside. And the circle has 6 principles written around it. And the first of those 6 principles says cooperate wisely. And when I'm acting as a school teacher, I always talk about these 6 principles to start every class off. And so I end up talking about cooperate wisely using the first or second day. So it's something that I've been, being that the school year just started, something I've been talking a lot about. And what I say to the students is, it's important to cooperate with mentors and peers. Because Melissa is cooperating with a mentor, and assumedly, it sounds like Kessie is too, because they're cooperating with mentors, their skills are growing faster, right? Their skills they're becoming better at dance and better at singing because of a mentor. But so it's good to cooperate with mentors and cooperate with people that can give you opportunities and people that can help you grow. But it's important to know who to cooperate with. And it's important to cooperate with people who have both ability and good intention. So like Melissa says that she recently has had a teacher who it seems is able to help her in ways that other teachers in the past couldn't. So she found a teacher who has ability. So you want to cooperate with mentors that have the ability to actually help you. But ability isn't enough. They also need to have good intention. They need to want good things for you. And I always tell my students, I say, if zombie Hitler rises up from the dead and breaks through a window and asks us to cooperate with him, we're not going to do it, because zombie Hitler is a fascist and wants to eat our brains. So let's not. And they usually laugh about that, and I get it. It kind of gets their attention. But the point being that I would say that that's a person that you just, if it's true, they really don't want you to succeed, and your hands are in their success, then it's time to stop cooperating with them. And I believe that if you partner with God and with the people who want the best things for you, that you can be delivered from that situation. Just like the Israelites were delivered from the Egyptians by power, and just like in the Book of Mormon, the people of Alma were first comforted in their hardship, and then after a little bit of time delivered by power from the people that oppressed them. In the same way, if you will partner with the ultimate mentor with the capital M and accept help from the people in your life that do have ability and good intention, I believe that you can be delivered from that situation. And as you're delivered from it, you will no longer be in the power of someone who does not have good intention. Or you make peace with that person. Maybe you're led through some kind of process to be able to communicate effectively with them and communicate to them how they're harming you, and they change and they act towards you differently. But that's a situation you don't want to stay in. You need to change it. I like I think that in the chat, Jamie gave you really good advice, Brendan, and she pretty much said the same thing I did, as I was saying it, but much faster, because Jamie's a much more efficient speaker than I am. Okay. And I love that Jamie says, I have total faith you got it. I believe that's true. And so how do you stay motivated in that situation, Brendan, for now? I think it goes back to the story I share, the story in the Book of Mormon, of Alma's people, and it says that while they were going through the hardship, the burden was made light until they were delivered. And I think that's the trick, is seek help until you can be delivered from that situation. Seek help to have the burden made light, and that'll help with staying motivated. And one of the motivation principles is motivated by reward, which is the idea that this is something you let the reward of whatever you're doing carry you through, right? And so an example of this would be if someone doesn't want to do their homework, but they say, I'm going to make myself doing homework for an hour, and when the hour is up, I'm going to play video games for 30 minutes. So like they give themselves a reward. It could be that in your situation, that if you have hope for a change in the future, that hope for a change, for a deliverance, can be the reward that keeps you motivated as you move forward. I'm quiet here, making a little bit of space. Space is important. I saw a meme today that I thought was really, really good, where it had a picture from like an old picture book that had a frog and toad, and frog and toad are sitting there, and it's the word in the picture book was something to the effect of, and they just sat. And then the person that posted the meme said, wow, I wish we could all do this, right? In our stressful lives, we're going, and sometimes it sounds like, the chance to just sit would be so nice. But here's my experience. When I get a chance to just sit, which there's more chances than we think there are, and when I try to just sit, too often, it feels uncomfortable. When I try to just sit, I start getting antsy, and I start feeling like I need to like go do something, and it's not okay to just sit. It's a powerful, beautiful thing that I think we all yearn for, to be able to just kind of just be with all this clutter in our head of like worry, thought, to just be. Something I think most of us say we want, and we say we want it, but when you have the chance to actually do it and you discover how uncomfortable it is, I find that most of us discover we might not want it as much as we think we do. Most of us are addicted to go. And we're addicted to thought, stress. There's stress hormones behind that behavior, and our bodies get addicted to those stress hormones the same way someone can get addicted to any other chemical. And so many of us are addicted to these things. And so we say we want a less stressful life, but in my experience, most people are creating a stressful life for themselves, including myself, so that we can keep the high of that addiction going. We're all alcoholics, but it's stress instead of alcohol. And we keep creating stress in our lives. I know young people who, like teenagers in my profession, I see teenagers who, the second everything, they need the stress of drama. And so the second the point where everything's fine with all their friends, they will pick a fight. They'll start picking a fight with someone, just like a fight that's going to last several days. They'll go on social media and say something to create drama, because when their lives don't have drama, they feel like something's wrong. And they just need, they feel like they have to create that drama because they want the thrill of that drama in their lives. Even though they'll say out loud, I wish I didn't have drama. And I believe most people, at least in American society, do this. We're addicted to certain kinds of stress in our lives, and we say we don't want it, but we actually do want it subconsciously, and we keep creating it for ourselves. And one of the principles of motivation is motivated by mindfulness. And what motivated by mindfulness means is that it balances the motivated by reward principle. Motivated by reward can mean that you are like waiting to finish a thing and motivated to get to the end and get the reward. But here's the thing: if we spend our whole lives only being motivated by reward, then we're going to spend like 99% of our lives working at things and 1% of our life experiencing rewards. And if reward is the thing that we care about, then you only enjoyed and lived 1% of your life, and you spent 99% of your life not actually living it, but looking forward to the reward. And that sucks. I do not want to get to the end of my life and look back and realize I didn't actually live 99% of it because I spent the whole time looking forward to rewards. Sometimes, some of which never came. And so we have another principle, which is being motivated by mindfulness, which means that, see you, Brendan, which means that in each moment, we actually experience fully what we're doing. Our family watched Inside Out 2 today. It's the second time we've seen it. And there's a scene in there where a character is experiencing a panic attack. And they represent the panic attack with like this blur of color inside her head that goes like this. That's so what a panic attack is like. I've had 3 panic attacks in my life, and boy, is that accurate. But one thing that's been shown is that when you're experiencing anxiety or a panic attack, if you just focus on your breathing and focus on the physical experience that you're experiencing right now in the world around you, that brings you back to your senses. You see what I'm doing there? Come to your senses. Come to your 6 senses, or 5 senses. 6 if you can't spiritual senses, but I'm talking about the physical ones right now. Come to your 5 senses. So think, when you stop and notice, what do I feel against my skin? What do I taste? What do I smell? What do I see? What do I hear? When you just take note of those things without judgment, don't try to be aware of things and label them as good or bad, but just be aware of them. That brings you back to your senses, and then you're just experiencing. You're experiencing instead of judging. And when you're judging, that's when you experience anxiety. Because you're labeling everything as good or bad, and all the bad stuff is stressing you out. And maybe the good stuff stressing you out too. And so, yeah, we don't want to, like Jamie said, it's being mindful instead of just existing. And when we say mindful, it's important that we be careful. Mindful means aware. It doesn't mean having lots of mind going on. When you're mindful, it doesn't feel like thought. The word mindful, the word we use for this in society, but we got to be really careful that we don't misunderstand what mindfulness is because it has the word mind in it. Mindfulness does not happen in your mind. Mindfulness happens in your whole body at once. You just experience what you're experiencing. And when you're mindful, you stay motivated because you're only experiencing what you're doing right now. Like if you have a big task to do, like let's say you're doing some kind of yard project, and it's gonna take like days to finish it, or maybe you're like trying to fix a car and it's gonna take days to finish it, or you're working some report for a week and it's gonna take a report for work, it's gonna take days to finish it. You're developing your talent in dance or in drawing or in singing, and it's gonna take months or even years before you get to the point as good as you want to be. When the reward is far away, this mindfulness or this presence is what allows you to keep going, even though the reward's far away, because you just enjoy, or at least accept, just doing what you're doing right now. You're washing the dishes, and you just notice how the soap feels against your skin and the nice sensation of that. And you notice the way the sun's coming through the window and hitting your skin and putting just really unique, slightly bit of warmth. It's a little warmer than the warmth of what's on your back. And you notice that and you go, I'm alive. And then it doesn't matter. Instead of trying to finish washing the dishes, you are washing the dishes. And you're far more motivated to do it. Jesus said, consider the lilies. And when you look at his teachings, it's very clear that he was a man who was very observant of what was going on around him. He noticed he could build parables that were based around so many different jobs and processes of nature because he spent so much time noticing. And when he was with people, he noticed them. Even individuals among a crowd that no one else was noticing that needed special help right then. It's because he was present and he was mindful. He wasn't worried. He didn't go around like thinking, worry. He experienced what was around him. And we can practice this. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a few hints of how. One way to practice this is to go on walks. And while you walk, pick a space some distance in front of you and say, from here until there, while I walk this distance, I am not going to think about anything, but just experience what my senses are telling me. And during that point, until you get to that sign or whatever, or that fire hydrant or whatever, you do that. And then once you get once you get past that point, you decide if you want to go a little farther or start thinking about things again. And as you practice, this is what I do when I walk to and from work every day. I've been doing it for over a year now. And there's been times where, because I'm practicing that, where I'm walking and I suddenly notice the way the light gleams off the water and the river under the bridge, or I notice the unique color of the leaves, or the certain crispness in the air, or the dog who's beyond the fence right next to me. And I really experience that, and it takes my breath away. And I'm like, this is all there is to life. This is it. This is all I need. Another practice is just to breathe. Just practice breathing. Buddhism focuses a lot on helping people not be obsessed with their thoughts. It's a big part of Buddhism. But in the teachings of Buddha, those teachings of the Buddha, and by the way, when we talk about Buddha in the teachings of Buddhism, Buddha is not a deity that people worship in Buddhism. Buddha is a word that means the enlightened one. So Buddha isn't actually like a god. Buddha is like a title. Buddha is like an office, so like a state of being you reach. And so in Buddhism, you work in enlightenment, and then once you become enlightened, you become a Buddha. And there's one guy who they refer to as the Buddha because he was in their teachings, he was the first one to do it, and so they're all looking to him as an example to learn to do it themselves. And so in Buddhism, which is the teachings of how to become a Buddha or how to become enlightened, in Buddhism, the teachings of Buddhism never say to turn off your thoughts, because if you try to say turn off thoughts, they just get stronger. It's like saying don't touch that, and you touch it. You can't tell your thoughts just turn off. So what Buddhism teaches is focus on your breathing, which we've talked about already today, and Barbara has demonstrated. You just breathe and you pay attention to your breathing instead of paying attention. And if you're breathing and noticing that you're breathing, then you don't think about anything. Something I've heard recently from a few people, I don't know if this is a rumor that's passing around or if this is true. I'm trying to track the source down still, but a bunch of people have told me recently that that the word Yahweh in Hebrew, which translates to Jehovah, in our modern English we use the word Jehovah, but in ancient Hebrew it was said something like Yahweh. That the roots of that word are the same roots as to breathe. And the same roots as I am. So it's this idea that I am, I breathe. As I breathe, I notice I am. And as I breathe, I just am and nothing else is. It's just me breathing. I am done. I'm not sad. I'm not happy. I'm not mad. I'm not angry. I am. Now, other practices that can help you to be really mindful is just go on the internet, go on YouTube, just type in mindfulness meditation, and you'll find so many YouTube videos just lead you through meditations that help you practice mindfulness. And they're really effective, and they're the kinds of things where you can do it for a few days, and then you get to the point where you can just maybe play some nice music and not play after you've done it long enough. You don't need the guidance anymore. You can have learned from that and grown from that, and then meditate without it. And then eventually you can get to the point where it's just kind of the way that meditation becomes not something you stop and do, but just the way you live. We're getting close to the end of the time we have together. No, since we're talking about meditation, it'd be good to do a short little meditation just to practice this principle. It's good not just talk about things, but do them. Sometimes meditation, it's good to close your eyes, but today let's do a meditation where we keep our eyes open so that we can practice noticing things. So please follow along with me. Go ahead and breathe. And as you breathe, notice your breath. Notice the sensation of the air going through your mouth, going through your throat, coming into your chest and belly. Notice the rise and fall of that. You might consider how all the air on our planet is constantly moving about, and during the day, the rays of the sun pass through the air, and the air becomes energized by the light of the sun. And then consider who is the light of the sun and the power by which it was made, and be aware that his light is infused into the air, and then breathe in the air. Notice your skin. What do you feel against your skin? Notice any sounds in the room you're in. What sounds do you notice that you don't notice very often? Notice that as you take the time to be present, to receive the life force of the air, and to be cognizant or aware of what's going on around you, that you stop existing alone and you start existing as part of a bigger whole because you're connected to your environment. And notice how much power that gives you to do whatever it is that you want to do and to stay motivated. We've celebrated the ways in which we grew during the last 28 days. And beyond time, from an internal perspective, you've already grown over the next 28 days. It's already happened. And the future you is just pulling you towards them like gravity. The future, there is a future that already exists. That's your ideal timeline. And that can just pull you straight to it. And so I want to take a moment to celebrate all the ways that we have grown already in the future. And by celebrating it, it'll pull us to it. This is the value of seers and prophets, and the gifts of seership and prophecy is they by discerning the future and then saying the future, they make the future real to those of us in the past, and then it pulls us to it. And so with the gift with whatever gifts of seership and prophecy I have now, I want to celebrate the future and let us be pulled to it with some huzzahs. In 28 days from now, we are all more present and mindful. Huzzah! 28 days from now, we have a stronger sense of our purpose and how it creates relationships, and that motivates us. Huzzah! 28 days from now, we all are able to use reward to be motivated. Huzzah! 28 days from now, our friend is no longer in a situation where he feels oppressed by someone who has power over him, as he expressed in the chat today. 28 days from now, he is healed through that and found deliverance from that and learned important lessons in the process. Huzzah! 28 days from now, we have learned to let go of the work and tasks that we do that isn't actually have anything to do with our purpose. Huzzah! 28 days from now, where we spend more of our time doing and enjoying the things that are part of our purpose. Huzzah! 28 days from now, we do everything more about relationships than about tasks. Huzzah! 28 days from now, we experience a certain joy and happiness. It's like a hum of electricity through our bodies that is like a new normal for us. And that hum is like an attractive song in the woods that attracts us to it and attracts us to that state of being we're headed towards. Huzzah! It's going to be a great 28 days, a great season of staying motivated. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm learning that I am more balanced when I don't be pushy with people, when I don't go out and try to help people so much, but when I more sit back and wait for people to come to me and help that way. That seems to just go better for me. And so if I can be helpful to any of you in any way, please reach out to me and I will help you. And enjoy your best self this motivation season and every season. Goodbye.